books volunteering.
Yeah. I ain't gonna say be on your best behavior, but
Just know what's up.
yes.
That's what gets put on YouTube afterwards. So.
We're not good at being on our best behavior here.
No.
We've been lax lately, but
So we are live streaming directly to
hey.
YouTube. Mahogany
Come
Books
on in.
YouTube
Welcome.
page.
Hey.
What up, fam? They came back. Grab some seats. It is February, no longer dry January. Go ahead, brother. There you go.
John needs a reason.
Cold. Come on, Ruth.
Come on in. Come on up.
We got a babysitter this time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Shout out to the babysitter.
Oh, thank you.
That is a highly necessary profession. Although, we're done.
Yep, we empty nesting on these streets. Okay. Empty nesting.
We're done with that. So, hello everybody. Welcome to our January book club discussion of the Black Books Matter Bookclub. Come on. We are here at Mahogany Books in Anacostia. Can you go to close the door for me, Grandma, please? We are here at our Anacostia location in Southeast DC to discuss this month's book. I'm gonna borrow yours, Brianna. Erasure by Percival Everett. This is the book that turned into the film American Fiction. So I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping stuff and we're going to jump right into it. And again, my name is Derek Young. I'm 1/3 of the ownership here at Mahogany Books, along with my lovely wife, Ramunda Young. Our kids down at VCU, hopefully behaving.
Yes, ma'am.
Please be behaving.
College kid now.
We started Mahogany Books a long time ago, in about 16, 17 years ago. But in 2017, we opened up this store in my hometown of Southeast, and we wanted to put together a community event that met monthly to discuss all types of books, fiction, nonfiction, books we love, books we hate. That does happen from time to time, okay? But it's all really to bring people together, to have conversation, to be in community with each other and just hang out and have fun. So we have honest conversations here. Everyone's opinion is welcomed, and you're allowed to disagree with it, but we just disagree respectfully. That's it.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
respectfully.
All right.
Why would my wife be the one?
I'm going in.
We are live.
That's all right. I'm just me. I don't know nothing else how to do. This is it.
All right. So we're streaming to YouTube and to Facebook. So guys, it's online. Please feel free to comment. We will definitely bring your comments into the conversation. We'll respond back in the comments as well. And we're going to have fun. This is what we normally do. We have a new family in the house. Two months straight now.
Repeat.
Yes.
Repeats. I mean, can we call it a repeat?
Yeah.
Like you guessed Savannah last month. So,
Still a repeat.
still repeat.
You found
Okay,
it.
fantastic.
You know?
All right. Yeah, you found me now. So,
Is this your first time?
okay. Introduce yourself real quick.
My name is Letitia.
What's
All right,
up,
that's my
Letitia?
sister's
You're
name.
welcome.
What's up, Letitia? We don't have
No, ain't welcome.
no.
Thank
no.
you, Letitia. All right.
See, this is,
When I come to the
yeah, okay. This your first time, man?
Yes,
Okay.
Sonia.
Sonia?
Sonia. Okay.
All right. All right. So we're gonna jump into it, y'all. Panama, we're in solidarity with your brother. He's out celebrating his wife's birthday. So happy birthday. We hope you're having a great time. And what's interesting, Panama text, I don't know if he texted you, he asked me about what I thought about the book.
Mhm.
I gave my opinion,
Okay.
and it was the complete opposite,
Okay.
as usual. So I'm not gonna give you my opinion just yet.
I know his opinion.
Huh?
I know he told me his opinion.
Oh, did he? Okay, so you know mine then.
If it's opposite, then
Yeah. So mine's opposite. I don't know. We'll see. I might change my mind throughout this conversation. But a little bit of back history on why we chose this book. Ramunda and I went to see a screening at the African American Museum, and
American Fiction.
yeah, I saw like some previews on TV for it, and I was like, yo, I gotta see this movie. It's about book publishing. I sell books. like, power to the people. We're going to be out there in their face in a satirical comedy way. And I love the movie. So I was like, okay, so this book has got to be one of the first books that we read. Okay. So I want this conversation to be both about the book and the movie and bring both of them in. But I don't know. I'm gonna let someone else go because I want to hold mine back.
Just real quick, we actually just came from the movie.
This is gonna be extra good.
For Rush.
Should you say your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the book. Enjoyed the movie far more than I enjoyed the book.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah,
Everybody.
by a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoyed them both. I think I'm really big on. First of all, I'm really big on film in general, and just in terms of an art form and things like that. I am always intrigued to see how movies get adapted to, or books get adapted to film, because I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, it needs to stick by the book. Like no, it's its own thing. So
Right.
I think that adaptation process in itself is an art, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There's things I appreciated about the book more and things I appreciated about the movie more. But I don't know. In general, I am very intrigued by where this conversation is going to go.
I don't know where it's going to go because again, this is going to be free for all because I'm still I'm up in the air about this.
It's either a good thing Panama's not here or it's a bad thing
I don't know.
But I'm really intrigued. So I'm about to talk to him about it offline because I'm really curious about what he thought about this book because he might see something in it that I'm not seeing.
Gotcha.
Who else has just some initial opinions on the book that you want to share?
I didn't dislike the book. I just liked the movie more.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the book, and some of it was confusing. I was like, who is this character now? Who is this person talking to who about what? And so maybe reading it would have been a little more, clear. But that I was like, oh. But the writing, I do think the writing in the book is good. I just felt like there were some side scenes or extra scenes that I don't know if I needed those. And I think the movie did take some of those characters or side scenes out, and it just made it more fluid.
Yeah.
So let me do this real quick. So one comment came in from online, and I think this is a great question. How many people read the book before they saw the movie?
I haven't seen the movie, but
Okay. So you read the book before you saw it. Read the book before you saw it. Anyone else?
I got halfway through the book before I saw the movie last night. So
Okay. Yeah. So everyone else saw the movie first.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's gonna be interesting. That reverse. If you felt some letdown, I think a little bit. I think maybe that's might be my issue. Is I really enjoyed the comedic focus on book publishing and his response to playing up this stereotype, which he did not do in the book, right? And I'm at I think I have maybe 3 or 4 chapters left. So I feel a little where's the funny? I'm not.
There's not comedic timing in the book.
Yeah.
The way we get it in the movie.
Yeah, the funny he puts in the book is not funny to me.
Right.
But the comedy in the movie, the funny in the movie was. So I was looking for that. So I feel a little let down at that.
Do you plan to finish the book?
Yes. So here's the thing, right? I feel so let down that I have to finish the book because I really want to really like the book, that I feel I need to finish it because maybe it'll finish stronger than what it started with. And I'm really kind of okay, we're gonna keep ramping up these last few chapters, and I'm gonna be like, oh yes, now you tie together, and I'm excited. But you're shaking your head
I'm trying to think
Well,
If you're looking for humor, you're not gonna find that in the book. Another thing that I thought was interesting is moments of tenderness. I hate to put this down because I'm already stuttering. In the movies, like some of the relationships to me were sweet, like Lorraine, the housekeeper. In the book, it wasn't like that at all. You know, like they were kind of bitter and kind of, and so that was interesting. You know, just kind of the way she felt about them and the way they felt about her. It didn't seem like a family, you know? And when they got married, just the things they had to say about Maynard, all of that, I was like, that was portrayed very differently in the movie, you know? But I felt like it kind of had to be because, you know, they were making it for cinema. And, you know, a lot of times in the movies, they want to leave you with a feel-good moment, you know? Because they have to wrap it up in an hour and a half or whatever. Whereas in the book, they don't have to. They're not obligated to do that. But yeah, you're not gonna walk away with feel good moments or humor out of the book.
Well, you look like you were about to say something. You was like,
well, yeah. I was curious for you, for others who've seen both versions, that what you're describing of like the lack of tenderness. If part of that is in being stuck in the narrator's perspective and his like sense of removal from the family, and like maybe if we were in a different perspective, like you get from the movie, we would see tenderness that he somehow doesn't have access to as a character.
I agree with that. I would say that there is tenderness in the book, but it's through the filter of Monk, and Monk is so like emotionally constipated that he doesn't like.
That's a good way to say it.
That's a
But it's interesting because I felt like the whole family is right. So so maybe we can jump into this piece of it. It was very interesting. So there's the dynamic of the dad. Right. So first I find it very interesting that like the kids refer to mom and dad as mother, father. Yeah. Which is like putting distance. Like it kind of removes the emotion of that relationship. Right. And then for it to be revealed that he basically had another family. He was there, but his heart was in another place. I wonder if that really played into creating that distance of affection that then Monk is now carrying on. Because I can't remember what chapter it was, but he talks about like that lack of affection and how that like affects how he deals with relationships now. So I found that to be an interesting piece of like the family dynamic, and like when we look at that piece of this overall story, how that plays out. So I don't know what you guys, if that kind of came to people's mind, but that was one thing that I found interesting about his inability to like really connect with people and how the story is not being told.
I think that's one thing I like about reading the book is that you do learn a lot more about the family than you can in the movie. You have all this backstory about the dad and how the dad formed Monk, really, and the strain on the relationships that it created.
Yeah, because especially in the book, you also get it from the sister's perspective. Like at least a third of the book, I feel like she's in there, and in the movie, she's out after like 10 minutes, 5, 10 minutes, right? And so we only really get we don't even get in the movie. We don't even get the learn about the father from Monk's perspective. It's really just Cliff's perspective in the movie. Whereas in the book, you know, there's all these flashbacks, and then you actually get to read the letters, and then you meet his half sister and everything like that. I enjoyed that aspect more from the book, because when we were first talking about it, you know, she was saying, well, you know, I'm not really into satire. And the funny thing is, when I initially thought about it, I didn't really see the book as a satire, because so much of the book is not really about my pathology, right? Like it's not really about that story. It's about his relationship with his family, with other writers, and his place in the world. So I appreciated that aspect of the book as well.
I agree with that 100%. I feel like the movie was a satire. The book is a people book. It's a book about Monk, his family, his relationships, stuff like that. And I was looking for more of the satire and comedy of right pathology, him trying to play this character to become a successful writer. So I think that might be where I'm having Just that what I was really kind of hoping about it. And again, it comes back to that question. I watched the movie first. I was set me up for something that book is
I think What's the character's name in the book? I forget. It's something Jenkins.
It is Juanita Mae Jenkins.
Well, it was Mae Jenkins. I knew it was Mae Jenkins. Yes. And I think the movie does a better job depicting of exactly why he's like struggling and why he's so disgusted
Well,
with my
but did you
pathology.
need him to? Did you need that spelled out for you in the book, though?
For me, as a reader, no, because I am disgusted. But I do.
Right.
I think because we see how he feels about everything else, that it is kind of surprising that it's not as clear in the book.
I kind of feel like it speaks to who the book is for versus who the movie is for, though. Like, I feel like the movie is intended for a broader audience
That's
maybe
not
than the book. Like, I think that Everett is kind of taking into account the fact that the majority of his readers have some understanding of why this kind of stereotypical bad vernacular book would be so noxious.
For sure.
And perhaps not all of the audience of the film would be aware of that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good point. It's kind of been Hollywoodized
Mhm.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Built to a larger audience.
I think so.
Was it necessary for him to tell the story of Van Gogh Jenkins in the middle of this book?
I think this is where I started to struggle because it's like a straight parody of Native Son, right? Like Richard Wright, it is. Like it's
Yeah.
the exact same plot, just with a modern setting and different names, basically. And so I kind of struggled with that because I was like, I didn't know where to focus. Like, was he just using Native Son as like an easy template to create this book within the book, or was he making some sort of statement about Richard Wright and Native Son? I wasn't quite sure, and I found that really distracting, actually.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that like the actual book was awful to read. Like it was not.
It was difficult
awful.
to read. Very
It was
Awful.
so bad.
It was difficult to listen to too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Oh, I thought it was
But
worse
like,
to listen to.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it probably was.
Yeah.
And it was
I mean, so
It was so long.
could he have done the book without putting that story in the middle of it?
I think he could have.
Or at least shortened it.
I see.
You know, like one chapter.
It did take over.
over.
Yeah. But I think I'm sorry. I was gonna say I think that's what makes the parallel relevant, because he could have just had one chapter of it or snippets here and there. He wanted to tell that story, I think, to your point.
Yeah, he wanted us to like reread Native Son
Yeah.
through this parody lens, and then I was like, well, wait a minute, we haven't spoke. Does Richard Wright exist in this world?
Right.
Do we know this is a parody within the context of this book, or do I just know this is? It was really distracting for me, so I had to stop for a minute at that part.
Artistically, maybe he could have like broken the book apart, and so we see little snippets throughout the book, right? But he gives us the full 10 chapters, not 10 chapters, right?
Yeah.
But then I think the reason why he thinks he can get away with it is because he's also giving us his full speech or lecture, whatever, of things that I'm like, I kind of understand this. I kind of don't. Like, I feel like you're trying to be obnoxious here, which I actually thought was good character development, because that's kind of who Monk is. I read him as very pretentious and very obnoxious, and
And that was part of the satire, right? Is that it was so pretentious and inaccessible.
exactly. And so he gives us all those parts, but I had to like catch my breath as I was like, I guess I had to keep reading this. I guess I had to.
It's sort of like I think it's called like the mimetic fallacy, or it's like you're creating something that is supposed to make your viewer, your reader, or whatever uncomfortable, but you've made your viewer and your reader uncomfortable. So it's like you've now alienated them and taken them out of what you're trying to do. I don't know, it's weird. And I was uncomfortable for a lot of this book.
Yeah, that's I don't know, something about it, and maybe it was like the pretentiousness of it. Like, it felt like I'm writing at this level that doesn't need to be written at, and it made, I don't know, not necessarily the pacing of it, but it just made it wasn't something that I wanted to keep necessarily coming back to. I had to come back to it because I was like, okay, there's book club coming, and I gotta be able to talk about it. I can just talk about American Fiction, the movie, but I gotta be able to figure out how to relate the two. But other than that, it just felt like I don't know. I don't feel it as a bad book. It just wasn't for me. Like, it is something about it just did not connect with me the way the movie connected with me. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Cool, man.
I'm gonna put it on the spot when you first sit down. That's good.
Any other thoughts? Somebody else want to jump in? I don't want the guys from taking over. Go ahead.
I'll just say one thing and then I love the writing. And it sounds like I might have been alone in that, but I found the voice so compelling and like particular. Like I felt like I was in this person's head who lived too much in his head and too much in books and with German philosophers and Irish poets just like hanging out in there with him, and that was a problem, but in a way that I found really striking. And I wonder if that, I didn't read the movie. I didn't see the movie. So like I feel like I'm speaking a little bit without a basis for doing so or for comparison, but I did find that character so compelling, his voice so compelling, and maybe I'm the only one who did. But
I enjoyed it.
I like how much time he spent on my pathology.
Yeah.
But I like the writing, and I do think there are some tangents that I just don't understand. But I finished the book like 2 or 3 days early, which never happened. Because I found it just so compelling. I just was also very frustrated trying to get through this section in the middle that will not end. It just will not end.
Has anybody read any other Percival Everett? Okay, because I was wondering if this was like classic Percival Everett or if this was Thelonious Ellison. Like when he did the whole German stuff and was in other languages and all that, I was like, because I was very interested in reading more Percival Everett because I really like this book, if he's not going to do all that other language stuff, you know what I'm saying? I was like, so if that's Thelonious Monk and we're done with that, then okay, then I can read more of him because he's a good author, But
So do you feel like Percival feels like he is Thelonious in a way, and that's how this came about?
I can't say one way or the other, but that was a question that I had in my mind throughout reading this. It was like, is this how you feel, Percival?
Because he has a lot. Like he has a pretty big catalog.
And I can't ignore that the time that this book was published too, like it's the early aughts, the publishing industry was kind of like that at the time. And he is sort of writing in this extremely experimental style that was popular in the early aughts, but not widely read. It was mostly read in literary and hyper intellectual circles. So he, has this stack of books that he's published, but not a lot of readership. So I do see that there is a little bit of Percival Everett in that sense in Thelonious Monk, the character. But I don't know if it goes right. I've never read any of his other stuff.
So we have a question from Courtney on Facebook.
Courtney, we miss you.
Hey, Courtney. She asked, did anyone think to skip the book within the book? Like, why do we all read that terrible writing?
I thought about it.
I think I got right up to when he left the little girl house, and I was like, it's a wrap. I really skipped the whole thing. I couldn't take it. I literally couldn't take it anymore.
Okay.
And I was like, I will not get through this. At first, I was like, this not getting ready to the rest of the book, is it? And so I was like, oh, it's not. And that's when I picked up. I have no idea how it ended, nothing. And it was when it got repeated at the end, I was like, oh, that's the part I read. And that was it. After he left that little girl's house, that was
Not the little girl.
I thought about
but she's 14,
stopping, but I was like committed to the train wreck.
And I was like, what in the Mari hell when it got to like the TV show portion about her? And he's like, there. I was like, please, like I was already fed up, but at that point I hit my like fed up meter. So
I think I could have done the like ridiculousness of it, but even like the dialect writing was bad because I read, Zorn Hurston, people writing in dialect. That it's not like, but it was like the dialect writing was the painful part for me. It wasn't like even just the incredulousness of the themes. It was like the actual dialect writing was so bad that I was like, I cannot.
Just so
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was too much.
It was.
I was not even smart enough to do that. Like I would have.
Hates my mom.
Yeah,
I love my mom.
Yeah.
Get that time back.
That is time lost. That is time lost. You want to share anything down there? Want to share your thoughts? Anybody? Want to make sure everyone's feeling good?
Late. I didn't know it was that I actually
Sit around. What you feeling
So
about?
you
I hated it.
hate it? Okay.
I hated it.
The whole book
And I-
or just that portion? The whole book.
The whole book.
Gotcha.
I saw the points he was trying to make, like the overall kind of like point of what is seen as Black art and Black people's commitment to how we show up in art and the things that we write and kind of how we get pigeonholed into if you're not writing about Black stuff, then you're not taken seriously or you're not like committed to other cause. Because as a scholar, I see that that's kind of like a privilege that white scholars have. They get to write about and research things that really just interest them. And generally, Black scholars, people who have marginalized identities are doing research, right? We do research on things that are usually meaningful to like our lived experience. And so we never really get to the maybe like fun stuff or that kind of stuff that white researchers get to kind of just do. It's like I got his point around that. That's where it ended. Like the rest of it, I just felt like every character was poorly developed. I just did not feel like I knew anybody except for maybe his mom. Everybody else, it was like
Even his sister.
yeah, it was just kind
Really?
of like
Okay.
everybody just kind of got cut short. Bill, so he just said "F you" when they left, and that was it.
Yeah, those are news.
I was sad about that.
At least in the movie, we felt like we had closure. You know.
Yeah, Cliff is way more developed in the movie, but I thought Lisa was really well developed in the book. I did.
I mean, I like Lisa I liked her in the book. So I haven't gotten that far enough to figure out the last part where now everyone's at the vacation home and what happens with that relationship between Bill and Thelonious. But yeah, I think
Seriously, it just
You
ends.
should finish the book, but
It just
nothing.
ends.
So here's my point, because I'm trying to see, and I think you mentioned it, like I don't feel like he's really connecting the point about the absurdity of, like, especially the publishing industry. I don't really see how this book is about that, right? I see, like, there's this side piece of it, but overarching, and if what you guys are talking, like, there's nothing really here at the end either. Like, I don't know.
To me, I'm curious what y'all thought about the ending and how he faded into whatever he faded into. But I feel like it becomes about him and his discomfort with life and his unhappiness, part of which is the publishing industry, but also is his daddy and these broken relationships in his family and this wealth he has now that he feels super guilty about, but also needs it. And I feel like at the end, the focus is really just Monk kind of imploding. He wants to die. He's not going to die. He wants to die. I hate my life. I love my life. I hate my life.
Mythology was kind of back and forth with I hate my mama.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the reasons I like the movie, is that we also get a look at this person in the midst of this criticism of white Hollywood, white publishing. We also are experiencing how it impacts this person who has a whole life outside of being an author. So the book does that too, but I don't think it connects all those dots that you're talking about and how it wraps up.
Wow. So you brought up the money piece. I'm just curious, as around this group, how many of us would have taken the money and wrote what he wrote because of the situation that he was in, right? How many of us would have taken it? Well, we were just like, no, we're going to stick on my principles and morals and not do it.
I'll be honest,
Y'all
like.
gonna take the money?
Absolutely.
And then I'm gonna get on that stage and be like, all y'all are trash. I wrote this book and look what y'all look at me. It's me. I'm Slayton, whatever got his name.
Yeah.
It's me, Stag, and y'all are trash. And I got y'all $3 million and I'm keeping it. And now I'm about to go on another talk show tour about how the public industry is trash. I'm gonna make some more money. And then I can go back to writing what I was.
Stop, y'all. A lot of people said they take the money.
I would take the money.
Why would you not? Why not?
The writer, the author, would not take the money.
Why not take the money?
That would destroy all of my artistic integrity forever. It wouldn't be worth it for me. I'll make my money another way,
Okay.
or try to.
Yeah.
Somebody else say yes.
I'm coming to this book club from a very interesting position.
Okay. All right. Are you
That
Percival's
brings-
sister?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I was joking. I don't know if you're his cousin.
Really, in a very unorthodox way, I called to order books.
Yes.
And Brianna told me there was a book club. And I was like, okay, I'll buy the book. I'll get a little background on it. And this is such an interesting perspective to hear about it before going intensely to read about it. And I'm like, oh, what? But I'm glad I bought it first because I feel like you need to at least make that commitment to purchase the book, right? But listening to everything everyone is saying, I am going to read it because I'd like to get an individual perspective, but it's a very interesting way to enter into a book discussion, right? Because I'm hearing all this and I'm like, wow, I wonder if I hadn't bought it before, but I bought it beforehand for that reason. I didn't want to get all the commentary and then be like, oh, I'll pass, right? I wanted to commit to the book. It's a Black author, the business, all of it. And that was above everything else for me initially. So,
But it's an easy read. It's not like I didn't like it, but it wasn't like, other than pathology part, it was actually an easy book to read. Like it was a quick read. I didn't feel like it was dragging. It wasn't that. It's just I just didn't.
And that's the other thing I told Rihanna. I was like, I'm just finishing up Cass and I need something light. Oh, don't look at me. Whoa. And I was like, a lighter, right? Because Cass has made me have cognac. It's taken me places I thought I had been. So I wanted to get something to read that was not that intense to kind of balance it out. So
Did you see American Fiction?
I haven't, because I'm a person that always thought the book is better than the movie, but I'm not hearing that
This is one
here
of those rare
tonight.
cases.
The book is the movie is funny.
Okay.
The book is funny. It's a dry film,
I
So
think
this
that
money,
question,
come on. I'm just curious.
I think my inclination is to say no about the money, except I don't have a mother who's dying. And I just think that changes things a lot. Like from the movie perspective, he wasn't doing this if he didn't have a mother who was dying and needed that kind of care. So it's hard for me to be a complete purist in this moment and know, like, if I were facing that and my sister had just died and my brother is, who knows what's happening with my brother because his, shit's all over the place. I think, and that's another thing that I actually really like about the book and the movie, like the practical realities. This isn't a low income Black family, but Black people don't have wealth.
That's right.
Come on.
So like it's a very interesting, juxtaposition to think about what does that practically mean for Black people of every and most income levels that we don't have material wealth in the same way. We can't just sell something right quick and get, what we need to cover all of our bases, right? That's tough.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think to be able to connect like the real life circumstance, your decision making changes when you're confronted with certain situations, and you're like, even Lorraine, right? Like, how do I take care of this person who doesn't like me, right? Doesn't have really anywhere else to go, and she's elderly too, right? Like. I do feel a commitment, responsibility to take care of her, right? So
take care of me,
right? Yeah. So even though she doesn't like, I find that funny, but so I think that's very fair. I think it does. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's not that I don't like the book. I think it does. It's touching on the thing I was looking for. Again, I saw the movie first, and I really think that changed my perception coming in. So I really did come in thinking I was going to get one thing, and I got something completely different. So I'm really interested in how I would have, people who saw it, who read the book first, I think feel like have a different type of relationship with the book because, yeah, they get it as, okay, these are really two different products now. That's essentially what it comes down
I
to.
enjoyed them both. I did. I like the book. I like the movie too.
I think that our co-host did too.
Yeah,
He's not here
I'm
you really like
No,
that.
Panama did not like. He
No.
does not like the movie.
really.
Oh, you like the book.
He said that. He said that last week. He's like he didn't like the movie at all.
Yeah.
That's why-
Recap.
Because I think for the same thing, it's basically the opposite, right? You saw the movie first. You were expecting something else from the book.
Yeah.
So Panama loves the book. He was expecting something else from the movie.
Okay.
The movie is way more funny. Like his agent in the movie is hilarious.
Yeah.
You hardly get any of that in the book at all,
No.
right? And his agent is kind of like dropping some kind of wisdom with the whole like blue label, black label, red. I was like, oh, okay. None of that is in the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I get is it Bill in the book, his brother?
It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
fucking.
He comes in, you hear about him, then he comes in and then he's gone for like whatever reason, he's just gone. But in the book, I mean, in the movie, Sterling
It's such a
is
sweet relationship in the movie.
and Sterling is hilarious.
Yeah.
He's
hilarious.
an Oscar. Yeah.
Wait, he's got nominated?
Yeah.
He's hilarious.
Yeah,
So you
it's
party
so
at that
good.
movie.
Yeah, it was great.
He took a lover.
Yeah.
How to use that phrase, whether or not it's true. I'll just
Right.
say
So
that.
if anyone here read the book and hasn't seen the movie, okay.
So you got to the movie yet?
No, she just told me what the movie was. I was like,
Okay.
there's a movie?
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
Wow, okay.
It's up for several awards, I believe.
Well, I knew.
Best picture. Yeah.
Yeah, American
Best
Fiction.
Picture,
Yeah.
really.
But you know it was based on the book.
Yeah.
So will you see the movie now?
Oh yeah, no, I planned to see American Fiction. I didn't realize it was
It's
connected to
connected
the
to
book.
the
I had no
okay.
idea.
It's up for Best Picture and Jeffrey Wright for Best Actor and Sterling K. Brown for Best
There's
Supporting.
over 40 nominations.
Yeah.
Is there an irony there, given the book's critique of awards?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yes.
That's why I was saying earlier that I don't think this movie would have been.
Maybe
Yeah.
years ago.
No one, people would have laughed at the idea of this book being made 20 years ago, but now it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I will say though about the movie, if we can talk about that real quick, Issa Rae's character,
Oh,
right?
Yes.
She was one of the things I didn't love about the movie.
Yeah,
Mm.
I found her character to be more frustrating in the movie than in the book
Was
because
she
we don't really
Lisa?
see her.
Was she even
character.
in
So we don't really get
different
to,
name. We don't really meet the author of the other
Okay.
books. In
Oh,
the,
she was
in the book.
Ray. Somebody.
yeah.
Juanita
So
Jenkins.
we don't really get to speak to her in the book, but we
Yeah,
get to speak to her in the movie, and so
it's more fun. They could have done more with that, I thought.
So to sum it up, essentially, when they have this, when the authors are talking about the book awards and whatnot, right? She's actually in that meeting. She's not there in the book, but she's in there in the middle in the movie, and she kind of is agreeing with Monk pretty much the whole time. And when they get on fuck, if you will, she agrees with Monk. They're like, oh, this it's not a good book. And then so he asked her about that, and she's like, well, are you trying to say that my book is trash? Because then she goes and defends her book and talk about, well, I researched these characters, this, that, and the other. And he's like very, very confused by that. And I was as well. I was like, I was like, okay, I thought you were going to have like pulling the curtain back moment. It's like, hey, and that never happened.
Yeah. Wow. Or even if they didn't want to go in that direction, there's so much more that they could have done with that. If you wanted to talk about Black people who are not really connected to certain aspects of Black culture and therefore easily falling into the trap of sort of upholding these really flat stereotypes or caricatures of Blackness. Right. I mean, that could have been a really interesting direction to go in. But the bad African-American language of "we's lives in the ghetto." That's not even grammatically correct. Like, African-American language is a language. It has rules, and that's not it. Like, that's not how you say that. So it's just like, I kind of was waiting, since we are meeting the author in the movie, I was waiting for like some sort of conversation around at least that to happen. It never does.
Right.
I've been waiting for her to like name drop Zora and be like, well, didn't you like
Yeah.
see what Zora did? That's
Like when
kind
she
of what
was like,
trying
oh,
to
some of
do.
this comes from interviews. I'm like, you're lying.
You're
Yeah,
You're
right. And it was worse when she was at the book read and saying it all. I was like, oh my god,
It
it's
was
my pathology
bad.
in real life.
Yeah.
She was watching Real Wives of Hollywood or hip hop or whatever that thing is.
Yeah, she was watching Jocelyn's Cabaret.
That felt like every scene with her to me in the movie felt like Twilight Zone.
Mhm.
I do not understand. Because I thought the what you mentioned about pull back the veil, I thought she was going to be just be like,
Yeah,
I'm trying to get
that's what I was
this money,
anticipating.
bitch.
I thought, yeah. Maybe to find some
Right.
No,
And then
she's
she got
called
offended,
the
like,
next
I can
American
erase it.
literary. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay. So Courtney has dropped another. I've been trying to interject this one in here for a while. So Courtney is like, she's on, y'all. She's
It's you in person.
so she asks, does anyone feel like Monk had a racial identity complex? The whole I hate my life, I love my life. I hate my mama, I love my mama. Was it really challenging? I hate being black. I love being black.
Yes.
In the book, I thought so.
Really?
I don't think so.
No.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go for that. Cause I'm
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not? Why-
Because I think I got in a place he was just like wanting to be human. Like I don't want to be black in the sense of like what that means around people deciding for me what that means I should be interested in, what I should want to do my work about, what I can be attached to, that like I'm black, cool. And like there are black things and we go to, the Black Hampton Week, that's cool. I'm happy to be part of like this black upper class and what that means, but like not the black that says I have to like particular things and show up a certain way as a signifier and signaling my blackness to other people to be able to judge me and say, you are black. That's what I was getting from his commentary. Not that he didn't like necessarily being black, but he hated the box that being black in America puts you in around how you're supposed to be black and express blackness. So I didn't get the impression he was having like an identity crisis in his stuff. He didn't want to be black. He wanted to be Monk, and he who happens to also be black. And that's what he was like pushing against.
I think it's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way. I felt like he had no peace with himself, though, because I think you could be pushing against what people tell you you're supposed to be and still have some peace with yourself. And be like, y'all full of some whatever. I don't need to go by your rules. I really like who I am. And I don't get the sense that he liked who he was. And I felt like he was just actually kind of a miserable human. And I don't mean that like I don't like him. I just mean he came off as being miserable even before he took the check for the money that he felt conflict about. Because he keeps talking about all these ways in which he's inadequate. Maybe he was just pointing it out to say he's inadequate to stereotypical blackness, but I felt like it was larger than that. I am inadequate as a person, and I'm inadequate in my family, and I'm inadequate in academia, and I'm trying to be settled, but I'm not settled with who I am.
Yeah, I didn't really read it that way. But maybe it's also been like a month since I read it, because I read it like right away. But the way I took it was that he was actually very comfortable with who he was. Where there was kind of a disconnect was in terms of seeing his book in the African American literature section when he didn't think it was that. And from that perspective, that's where he kind of felt conflict. But what I thought was very interesting in terms of all the flashback sequences is that, well, yes, he was kind of like awkward. I think we got to see that his family in particular was very comfortable with who he was. And I think because of that, he was actually comfortable with who he was. I think in the movie, though, we see he says things in the movie like, oh, well, I don't even think like race exists. He doesn't say anything like that in the book.
He doesn't.
So, which to me was very jarring. And the whole idea of him getting called out for only dating white girls, again, that doesn't happen in the book. So I didn't necessarily take that as like he hated his blackness or whatever. I think that it is one of those things where he sees himself for who he is. And then when he's forced to actually acknowledge, oh no, there's this thing that's Black and this is this, that's when he's like, whoa, okay, well now I'm not necessarily that. So I'm kind of uncomfortable with that. But I didn't necessarily take that as him being uncomfortable with himself as Monk, who is Black, because you do see the times when people are talking about like, oh, this is so raw, this is a real Black experience. And I thought I remembered, his thoughts are like, well, like I'm Black and this is not my experiences. I thought there was that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, maybe someone else read it differently.
To your point, he does indicate his discomfort with himself, at least in relation to others, repeatedly. He talks about, I think you mentioned earlier, the moment where he reflects on his parents, like lack of visible affection for each other, and the way that affects his relationship. None of the three siblings has a sustained primary partnership over the course of their lives that we hear about. He talks about, no one else sees me as awkward, but I felt awkward. I felt off. And so whether that's anything else, that's like his father wanting him to be special and him not wanting to be seen as special. And so I thought that was a discomfort with himself, or even discomfort with the way he perceives himself.
She was grammatically correct, and also she was coming from an anthropologist like lens.
Did talk to people.
Like Ace's
There are
character.
receipts.
Exactly right.
So now I kind of want to go into comparison with like all three and kind of see like the history. But
I do kind of want to reread Native because now I'm like, do I need to rethink Native stuff? Was it problematic?
No.
It was very specific to this book right here.
But it did have one little like fun, I guess like fun connecting moment when I forgot the lady name that he was dating when he was on the island. When he like snapped on her, she's like, "Get out!" Like, I'm like, she's sitting there. Like, his boyfriend showed up and he was talking crazy, and this one coming in. She's like, "Just get out, bro!" Like,
Yeah.
And I was like, "Sis, yeah, that's that's it." I'm
chastising her about reading the "We Live in Together" book.
But I just imagine like when she, because like when he came and the ex-boyfriend was there, it was kind of like she presented like he just like showed up. Saying she's trying to separate, he's gonna show up and giving us a Donnell Jones moment in the window, looking like trying to get back in. She's trying to separate, and then she finally get rid of him. Then the one she liked show up, and he started. You know what? Don't worry about it. Everybody get out. Get out and leave me alone. And I was like, such a life. So that was my little fun connecting moment in the book of like just sick of it, just sick of him. So, but yeah.
I also had one moment in the book that I really enjoyed too was even though the dad was kind of distant from his kids, there was like this one part where he said, these two are going to be doctors and you're going to be artists. So I was like, oh, he's watching them, like he knows them. Yeah.
He wasn't a great father, but he kind of knows kids.
So there were some humorous moments because you mentioned that as you go further along on that, the daughter says something like, "What kind of doctor am I going to be?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, you're going to be a good doctor." And Bill is like, "What kind of doctor am I going to be?" Or no, someone asked him, "What kind of doctor is Bill going to be?" And what was the response?
He said, "I don't know."
Yeah, I don't know. It's like,
right,
dude, like, yeah, that.
You're calling it early.
Yeah, and the fact that even in his little gray box, he admitted openly, and at least in a letter, that Thelonious was his favorite kid. Right. That was like, it's a very interesting family. Like that was, I don't know.
I didn't take that so bad.
No, I was just thinking from the movie perspective, and I'm not sure if I delve into the book. I didn't read all the book. I was listening to some of it, but when we think about family dynamics, I think for me, when I see that we have a doctor, and this big author, and there are still these money issues, right? And I think we walk around and we think, oh, this family's absolved. Look at them, and they were not. And I just think that in this day and age with Instagram and all this, you see all these people, are they making money? You see all these images. I mean, you feel like the curtain is not like that. And I think it was good to see that. I don't know if I've ever really seen it in movies that I've seen. I think I loved that aspect that we can really we're human and people are struggling. How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to take care of mom? How are we going to do this? And we're looking at what looks like the storybook picture of all, which should not be a problem.
Yeah.
So I just thought that bringing that kind of humanity to our community was just needed and beautiful. So I don't know if anybody else had any thoughts about it. It was just like, okay, cool, or not. But that touched me.
I noticed that.
You did?
Yeah. I thought it was important.
Yeah. That resonated.
I think it was important too when you talked about family and then the issue with the mom and taking care of your mom. Even in the movie, I know he said it, but Cliff was like, "Oh, how much it costs to put her in this fancy kind of thing?" And it wasn't even that fancy. It's actually for me,
right?
Very bottom board, and they were definitely overcharging for that. But just seeing that and be like, "Oh, well, she was the best kind of mother." What? How do you say that? And I wonder if other cultures, how they care for their elders who are dealing with dementia, dealing with Alzheimer's, how they care for their elders. Because I know personally, for me and my family, when our elder matriarch was dealing with Alzheimer's, we all stepped in, we all chipped in. I was 13 years old and spending the night taking care of my great grandma because that's just what we knew, right? There was no question we were going to put her in a home or anything even close to that. So seeing how they dealt with this, and then of course monks internal struggle. Not only did you just lose your sister, who was also a bright woman who was keeping things on, like the lights. And then, of course, now you're dealing with your mom, and she's getting tremendously worse. Like, you are kind of put between a rock and a hard place. So, as a writer, I totally understand artistic integrity, because I definitely have been there. But at the same time, once you're pushed against that wall, it is kind of easy to just kind of take the check and now, okay, we can breathe a little bit. Okay, we can make some necessary steps, even though it's a really terrible reason why we got it.
Well, how do you think that was handled in the book? Because I thought in the movie, it's not nearly as painful. Like in the book, it's painful.
Yeah.
At least I thought it was.
Yeah.
So did you think that they handled that?
I think it was more painful in the book, for sure. In the movie, I felt like it was kind of very easy, right? Very easy to take the money, very easy, like, oh, now we ushered her in, or they were like, we'll have her in by the end of the month or something like that. Where I didn't think it would be all that easy, or just a short time frame. Like, I knew she was deteriorating, but it probably would have been like a couple of years or something. Even let some of that money sit. I don't know, maybe have an attempt to maybe return the money, right? Like, change your mind, be like, no, we're going to go a different direction. We have some help from this family member, help from here. So
What I will say, what I thought was interesting is that in the book, it's actually very, even though it was painful to read, I think it was actually, she gives the impression that it was a kind of peaceful for her, because she doesn't really protest in the book. Whereas in the movie, she's like, what am I doing here? But it's so rushed, because I think the movie wanted to spend far more time on the satirical comedic aspect. Whereas the book, and this is one of the things I liked about the book, they spend so much time on the family. And so, you know, the idea of he's been away for so long, and he's getting reconnected through his sister, and then she's taken away, and it's just like, okay, wow. Then he's reconnected with his brother, and he just decides to go crazy and just bounce. And then, you know, I did see a tenderness between him and Lorraine, just because of how much he was thinking about her. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, we may not always speak friendly on the surface, but like, we recognize that, you know, she's family, because in both the book and the movie, he acknowledges that Lorraine is family. So I did see some tenderness there, but I thought in particular, everything going down with his mother was just like, I don't know. I thought it was handled responsibly and thoroughly in the book, but I'm curious your thoughts on that. If you thought it was handled, you know, thoroughly and responsibly in the book.
I think pretty well, and also too, like, the deterioration was kind of a little clear, and I don't know, maybe if it was the Alzheimer's of the book, but like the thing with the pistol, like, I recognize that whole scene, like seeing things that aren't there, being like, okay, let's just take the dangerous item out of your hand and slowly go from there. So I think it was, but yes, it did feel quite rushed in the movie versus the book. Like, it was way too easy. I was like, is this really how it goes? But
no, I think that water scene. Just swim up there, go get your mama, and she's in the middle of the inner, like the like, and nothing about him was giving athletic. And okay, nothing about him said triathlon, and he had to swim out there and get his mama, right? Like, it was just kind of like.
And maybe that was,
and after that, he was like, "Oh no, I can't do this." Like, I thought I could do it. I thought I could be Lisa. Can't. I'm not gonna be able to do it.
I don't even know if. Well, that's will be interesting. Like, at what point did it really start increasing in terms of
like
severity?
She got worse when Lisa.
Like, so Lisa was dealing with some of it, but it felt like it really started to kind of ramp up with Thelonious was there by himself then.
So I have some questions about Lisa's death and how they treated it in the movie versus the book. Her death in general was traumatic, but it was way more traumatic in the book. Like how she died, she was murdered, right? And so I felt like, I don't know, I don't say they properly grieved her, but there's a lot more grieving that happens with a murder versus a heart attack. You know?
Sorry, I didn't know they just took that whole thing out in the movie.
Yeah, she was smoking a cigarette at dinner basically. Well, kind of, but not really, because she was smoking because she was stressed. She started smoking after her divorce, and her husband was cheating on her, and she, you know, so kind of, but not really. But. And then I thought it kind of would have been apropos for them to let her get shot in the movie because she was an abortion clinic doctor and everything that's going on in society right now. You know what I'm saying? So
for them to change that was interesting.
So they wanted.
You had a question though? I thought you had
about how they handled it in the movie versus how
Yeah,
they
just
handled
how
it.
y'all thought about that.
I actually appreciated her not getting shot in the
Yeah, I
movie.
did too.
Yeah, just because, like you were saying, it I think would have required more time to handle appropriately, just because of the complicated grief that comes with someone being murdered versus someone dying.
Especially
Mom,
over a
natural.
terroristic act, like, because this is a little bit even more than just murder. It's like a terroristic act that the person is taking at that point.
And I kind of don't need to see another Black person shot on the screen. Like, I'm good on that. Like, in the book, I understood it. It makes sense in the book, but in the movie, I kind of appreciated that I didn't have to endure
But do we
that.
feel like their grief was pretty
I
quiet
didn't
in the book?
appreciate that.
Like, even when Lorraine called, she's like, "Hey, Lisa's dead." You know, like, do we feel like it was just real calm?
So,
Or
I
we didn't
thought
feel
it
it
showed that they were so disconnected.
Yes.
Just from themselves, but also each other.
right. But I feel like it was handled because of the response of the mom when they came to tell her, and she was like, "You know what? You need to tell Lorraine this."
Yeah.
Because like at that moment, it felt like she became extremely lucid about what her entire situation was. She's like, "You need to tell Lorraine, I'm not going to remember this, and this is something that is really important that needs to be explained to someone who can really handle this with care, because I'm not that person right now." Right. So I felt like the mom really kind of did that, because there was even a moment where the mom was like, because she even came back to herself and she said, like, "My baby is gone." Right. So there were moments where the mom would kind of speak to it, and at least where she showed the emotion of the family, right? Even though everyone was kind of detached with each other, like the mom was kind of like, again, the heart there that revealed itself in those moments when it was necessary to show that there was actual love there. They just, the way they demonstrated it to each other was weird. Right.
And I agree. I don't want to see another Black person killed on screen.
Yeah.
But just, we could have found out about it through a phone call. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
she still could have died the same way.
Yeah.
It's just we didn't need to see it.
I
Yeah.
wonder if the director felt that way too. Like, I'm gonna take that, make an executive privilege moment decision and not add it, because I don't want to contribute to seeing another Black person.
And we still
But
saw
then they
another Black
killed
person
Monk on
get
screen at the
shot.
end.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's true.
It seems like it seems from what I'm hearing that the movie wanted to strip away everything else in the book and make it about this one thing, much more.
Yes.
Not deal with the abortion, not deal with the complexities of family dynamic, and make it about publishing, kind of the way like
Sure.
Yellow Faces or something.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely streamlined.
It's streamlined. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's about one thing.
It's still
That's
about
one
the
of the
family
reasons I
too. It's
like
just
it.
they changed the family dynamic a little bit for the movie.
Yeah.
They had a lesson. Because again, I think it's more like, to me, it reminds me of some of the other books we've read. Was it the Turner House, the Black Cake? Like, there's been a number of books that we've read that's really about like this family dynamic, like how they engage with each other. And this one, the movie, like this was one of those same kind of books where that was primary in the book. The movie, it became like a secondary, maybe third. Like, it was there, but they focused what I guess would sell, create the comedy and like the interest about, again, how Black art is treated through the movie.
And I wonder when he started with the movie, when he started shooting this movie, I haven't checked to see, but when I think of the slant being so focused on publishing and authors, and in 2020 when George Floyd was murdered, all this, craziness surrounding Black books and Black authors, and it being, it was not equitable, right? There was a lot of people, it was a lot of conversation about white writers were getting paid this, all that coming out of his work. And so I wonder when he was creating or thinking about adapting, if that slant came on the heels of that, right? So it's really hot now, we're talking about Black books and Black authors. Let's create this book. This great way to adapt and have that focus. Because again, it's a wide audience, but it's so still hot now. A lot of authors see it, really walk right
Like if you did, this family will break your heart. I feel like in the movie, had you not seen the book, I'm curious, did that hit with you? It makes sense if you read the book and you know the whole story. Yeah, this family will break your heart. But just by what they showed in the movie,
No.
Okay.
Just for how they were treating him in that moment in the movie, not at all.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely have some context for that.
I kind of hate that whole thing of the affair though, because there's a way in which, like, why can't we just have a little wholesome black family? Like, why does it always have to be like a little scandal, right? That like that, and at least the sans the fetishizing part, the letters at least made it feel like he just met someone he really fell in love with, versus like if they had just like alluded to it that dad was out here being a Rolling Stone, it felt like, all right, so it's a black man, he got some money, now he out here in the streets, like he can't, right? Like it at least added that by having the letters and there's like this there's like connection and love or whatever they had amongst each other. But I just sometimes wanted to just we could just be wholesome.
Absolutely.
We could be dysfunctional because family means dysfunction. Everybody's family is dysfunctional. It's just the level of dysfunction, right?
But everybody not cheating. Everybody doesn't have to be in the family.
There can be disconnect without there having to be.
That's right.
That's right. I think the interesting thing is like about a lot of men in those wars is that there's a lot of families in Korea or in Vietnam. You know, like it just happened to be a white woman, but there's a lot of those situations that to this day we don't know about. But we got a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins that are half Vietnamese and half Koreans that are still over there.
I wish that would have done that instead of it being like that. Because in the movie they don't really allude to it being a white woman. They just say he had
They say
an
that they
affair.
saw dad kissing a white woman once,
Right.
But the implication was that there were many women, so
Right.
it wasn't like the great love of his life was this. And I just don't like that whole like story that it's star-crossed lovers because it victimizes the white woman, so the white woman gets to be the damsel in distress yet again, and the black woman is the undesirable one who's holding the black man down, but he's not holding her. I didn't like it. I didn't like that at all. No, that was not pleasant for me to read.
Thank you all for letting me drop in. My
Oh,
bride is here.
The translucent.
I didn't like that. I was like, no, I don't like this. And I believe it was intentional, but I just really didn't enjoy reading it. Like, I think it was supposed to gross me out, but it grossed me out. It was like, this is not fun for me.
Right. And this is like not important, I don't think, but wasn't the movie set in Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah.
Is it
Boston.
okay.
Well, it was
And the book was in DC.
It was in
right?
Boston, and then and then the book was in DC.
I felt some type of way.
I felt kind of way too. I was looking forward to this. Like, I want to see a movie in DC.
I enjoyed the book being in DC.
Yeah, I don't know. Why did they?
Because they're
keep it
equally
in
small.
DC?
Because Boston is that big.
But it flips back and forth. So remember, he's coming from Hollywood, going across the country back to Boston. I was like, that's so
I
different.
mean, Boston is maybe whiter.
Probably.
Maybe that's
I guess
it.
that's right than
Maybe
current
that's
DC.
But that doesn't even.
I wondered if that's what it was.
But it doesn't even hold though around the black, like having a black rich person in Boston. It makes sense coming from here to have a black Dr. Rich person with a rich family.
Is that like history of black people?
But
Black
in Martha's
affluence in Martha's
Vineyard.
Vineyard. Yeah, so maybe that's why they
Martha's
did it.
Vineyard, Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't live in Martha's Vineyard. You go to Martha's Vineyard.
So
So the beach that they were talking
Yeah.
about is Highland Beach.
Oh.
And it is not what it used to be. And I wonder pragmatically if that is part of what was hard about it. But
What do you mean it's not what it used to be?
it used to be a thriving black beach
Highland Beach.
Where is it? Where is Highland Beach?
on this side of Maryland shore.
And it's gentrified now?
They need some water.
I was gonna say we might have to put that up in our African American leisure book that we have.
No,
there.
I actually drove over there once. So
Oh,
I was very
really?
curious. And I got through the gate and just was looking around the neighborhood, and the beach is just not what it was. You know, when we didn't have other beaches to go to,
Right.
and we had to only go to certain places. That's what Highland Beach was. So a lot of black people in DC would have summer homes or whatever at Highland Beach, 45 minutes outside of the city.
Gotcha. And I kind of wish they kept it in DC.
So what do we think? I want to get to me, the controversy piece is, and this is actually a record. This is, I think, the first time since 2018. What?
I didn't say anything. You're guilty. I don't know. I didn't say anything.
No, for real. That, because normally when we have these conversations, we early in the conversation veer off on a tangent, right? And we've gone like an hour and a half. First of all, we started on time, y'all.
Yeah, we did. I definitely, I don't know. In the new year, I started. I was watching the corner. Must say, yeah.
We started on time, but we almost an hour and a half, and we haven't really gone off on a tangent because normally we get into like, okay, now culture, circumstances, society.
Sure.
What does this mean? How does this impact? And we weave it back to the book.
Mm-hmm.
We've been
On the book.
this entire time.
And the movie.
Huh?
And the movie.
And the movie, yes, and the movie. But I'm surprised. Okay. To me, the controversy, and this is why the movie I think was able to get greenlit, was about again back to Black art, right? And how does society receive it? Like what gets put up for nomination, for award. And we've had these conversations before about these, just talking about the different books that we've loved, books that we've not so much enjoyed, but got hella props from the very beginning. And we're like, yo, what is this? And then there's been books that hasn't gotten any pub, right? Very little publicity that we read and we're like, yo, why isn't this being considered for all the awards? Like this is speaking our voice. This is art. This is skill. This is so I'm just very curious, like, how do we, if the movie was making that point, I don't really think the book was making this point, but based on the movie, like, what do we really feel about, because, and you asked a good point about, would you, not selling out, but taking the money for that. I kind of want to get back to that conversation.
I think.
No, go ahead.
I think with the money specifically, I think Black people would relate. I don't think they would feel like people. So I think there would be some people, but I think that situation is so visceral, so real. Like I understood why he took the money. So I think a lot of us would have felt like he sold out, and I think most. I'm speaking for a lot of people, not a lot of people didn't hear it like that, but I think it was a no-brainer. Like take the money, look at mom, look at this situation we're in, versus this. I can't believe you did that. So that's what I think.
Well, I was just gonna say I'm not the most well-read individual. She is the author, the writer, whatnot. But I was thinking about this in the lens of like hip hop music, right? Which is why I was kind of wishing Panama could be here today, just because some of the things that, like, forget the art itself, the dialogue about the book and the author, both in the book and in the movie, was something that I think we can relate to from like the hip hop listening experience in terms of like, oh, this MC, this artist, they have street cred, right? And so you kept seeing in the book, it's like, oh yeah, he's the real deal. And of course it's coming from the white person. But I feel like that actually kind of struck a nerve with me in terms of like, well, like when I was younger, we had those conversations about like street cred and this person was this, that, and the other. And obviously as I've matured, I've kind of grown out of that. And I think just more about like, I think more in terms of like the artistry and whatnot. But nevertheless, like that was a thing, even amongst like the Black community who was listening to hip hop music. Like, you know, we wanted like an authentic experience. So how much of these artists were saying things like that they may have witnessed, or how much was it authentic or embellished and this, that, and the other. And like, we all know, like, you know, NWA comes out on the scene and all of a sudden, like it's massive, talking about this life in the gutter, in the hood and whatnot. I'm using the language from the book and whatnot. But that's where my mind went to reading this book, which is why I thought like in 2001 for it to come out, it's like, okay, that makes sense. But you wouldn't really see a movie on that. But like now it's even, you know, you have an additional 20 years for it. I don't know. That's just kind of where my mind went to.
Yeah, that's a good example because even like 21 Savage, right? When his citizenship came into play and everybody's like, oh, he lost his street cred. Well, he was still exposed to a lot of that stuff because he grew up in Atlanta. Like, he does have a little bit of truth into what he says. But would anybody like respect him? Like, would anybody respect Biggie and his legacy if he hadn't been in the New York streets, like which are,
I mean, remember when Drake came out? It was like, this Negro was on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
Right, and so it was just kind of like,
I mean, most Def just called his music Target.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which and he wasn't lying though, and that's really a big part of it.
It's
Like,
not, yeah. it's-
Target music.
yes.
but the thing, I think that's the point though, is around like there should be a place in Black music for all of it, right? Because y'all say what y'all want. Hotline Bling is a bop, right? Like we should be able to have
We should
Have
have
fun, yeah,
that
we
was a
should have
short
fun.
one.
right? It's like things when we take just one perspective, right? Like my first like explicit album that had hidden between my mattress was that good Lil Cam hardcore. But I'm listening, but like singing words that are having euphemisms or things I have no idea. I've literally never seen a penis except for in animation. Like no, right? So it's just like it was just like there was nothing, like
No reference to come
no
from.
reference to come from, and so it was just like who did I relate to? Brandy, like because like that was my experience, but there was no space in a hip hop place for me to be because they just didn't. Those people who might have did those raps, 'cause I'm sure they tried, but the A&R people wasn't checking.
I think Will
But that's
Smith is the one who came through and kind of gave a little slice. It wasn't kill, 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 and all this derogatory. It was, kind of, I say more
Welcome to
wholesome, but not,
Miami.
more wholesome. But he had his moments too. But yeah,
Well, I
talking
think
about that. But yeah.
but part of the point that I want to make sure we, at least for me and my question is, because it's one thing for us to give someone street cred, like to say, you know what, Drake isn't hip hop, right? He's not gangster rap versus Biggie or somebody like that. It's something different for Columbia Records, right? Or for Pink and Random House to say, this is the next book that we ordain as the next Black literary masterpiece, right? This is Toni Morrison, this is Zora Neale Hurston, and they're now identifying that book as it. Now they're getting all of the publicity, they're getting all the award nominations, and what they have ordained as the creme de la creme of Black art to be something we're sitting there looking at like.
But that's exactly what happened though, right? So the point you're talking about, particularly with the '90s hip hop music, is spot on, right?
Yeah.
Like you had your Black intelligentsia in the early '90s with like Native Tongues, BDP, Stop the Violence Movement, and then it disappears. Dre comes on the scene, Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep, whatever, right? Yeah, you had your little Will Smith, but for the most part, like you don't really see the quote unquote like Black thinker rap until like most stuff in the '90s, late '90s. But then all of a sudden, who comes through? 2002, Kanye West, right? Who I was never the biggest fan of his music, but nevertheless, I saw that documentary that came out not too long ago, and he had to work really hard because the Columbia Records, the Def Jam, the Rockefeller, whoever, like nobody believed in him. Why? Because he was wearing pink polos, and so now there's a space for all different kinds of rap. You know what I mean? You got your who's the Lupe Fiasco, right? All these thinkers and whatnot. And so, but someone had to come through and say like, no, there's a lane for that. But at the time though, when this book was written, that wasn't the case. It's exactly to your point. Nobody was going to say that like, it was the A&R to your point, Columbia Records to your point, that like, no, this is what is going to be the next big thing. And the more visceral it is, and the more hood and Black it is, like that's what we're gonna put out.
But I think it's really important to emphasize the disconnect between the community and the industry. I think that the community has always been welcoming of different types of narratives. What the community doesn't like is when someone is not being authentic. So when you have someone who has not been on the streets, who is representing themselves as though they have, that's what we don't like. That's what the community doesn't like. But the industry has for a very long time had a very narrow definition of what Black art is, and it has kind of forced people into that inauthenticity that the community doesn't like. So it has sort of widened the disconnect, and we're just now starting to repair that. So I do think it's important to emphasize the difference between what the community wants and what traditionally the industry has wanted, because I think the community has always been open to, you know how Black people are, like you could be a Black person who is speaking in dialect and like very Black identified in certain ways, but you could also be somebody who talks like me, and we're going to be welcoming to all of us.
Yeah, because that's what our families looked like.
That's what we know, that we recognize that.
We got this one Pookie in jail. We got all of
Black recognizes Black in
regardless.
all of the forms that it comes in, but the industry, because the industry has for so long, and frankly kind of still is, been run predominantly by white folks, doesn't. It has a very narrow definition of what the Black experience is.
And if you can perform it, regardless of your race.
That's what they want.
That's what they're on.
Yes.
It's just, I think it's just pure capitalism. It's not even thinking about, is this really connecting? Is this going to make our publishing company money? Is this going to make our record company
money? But I do think they're thinking about connecting with white people. They're not thinking about connecting with friends. So there's legions of young white kids.
And they're more
want to
so what are we saying to that though? Because that's a like to bring up, that's a very scary idea, because the people that they're paying, to your point earlier about taking the money, right? Not every MC, like all these dudes ain't out here busting those, like doing the stuff they're talking about. They're getting paid to show up as a WWE character, right? And to perform this persona to get cut that check.
We were talking about this with the young women rappers.
Yeah.
The persona that many of them are encouraged to.
And if they're being paid to show up like that because they think that's what's going to appeal to white listeners, again, that's what comes back to this, to what, at least in the movie, what was being emphasized, Stagger Lee, I don't need to change nothing about this book. Right. The way you wrote this book, all the craziness, the most ghetto, stereotypical thing is what I'm going to put out. And what did she say in the movie? This is going to be a summertime read. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
she said it was so
this
visceral.
was like, that's the infuriating piece of it, is that they ain't lying, right? They're telling the truth. And that's the thing that.
What is it? I wonder if it's a summertime hit with us or with everybody else.
No, but that's what you're saying.
I don't think it's with us.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not with us. Yeah. But the thing is, we're not in those seats. Out of 20 people in the record label seats, or the 20 people in the leadership and the publishing, we're not in those seats. It's not. There's maybe a couple of us in those seats. So it'll always, I think, churn in that way.
Because the reality. Oh, sorry.
No, please.
No, you try.
Well, I was thinking before about like your description, right, that is true and useful. Well, not useful, but important. Remember, like income versus wealth, influence versus ownership. And so when you talk about all of these different things and the dynamics of the industry, who's in those seats? It's not who's good. It's not what's going to make money. It's what do we think will make money based on who we're seeing, who we're talking to, and those are often a really skewed idea of like, who has money to spend on this? That's based on sometimes at the best surveys, right? So one moment to bring it back to the book that I really liked was the judging scene and sequence.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like it's different in the movie, but like he, as far as I can tell, is the only Black person in that room.
No, it's two women.
It's two of them in the movie. In the book.
Oh, yes.
In the book, it's
always
just
one.
him.
True.
And it's listening to it seems like probably white people, they're not identified, but it seems like white people who are talking to other white people think other people are going to want to read, and it's their imagination of who people are is white, right?
But the money doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Just sheer numbers. Black people only make up 12% of the population. Right? If we just do sheer numbers,
that's it.
The reality of it is they're not selling to us. Because even if every single one of us bought the album,
That's right.
It's not enough, right? They need the actual masses. We are not the masses. And so there's a way in which they capitalize on the caricature of Black people that everyone has caricature, we're not, but have made us caricatures and want to wear us, right? They want to be in the car rapping and having that moment because they get to kind of like put it on and portray in the car with their friends and kiki, on their way to prep school in a blazer, right?
That's
the
I also
capitalism
think
aspect.
they're doing social conditioning though. Like some of it, yes.
You
is
think
what
you
they-
do or you don't think?
I do think they're doing social conditioning. That's part of the way white supremacy and capitalism works. Is that we tell these white people what they want.
Yeah.
We tell them who to be. We tell them what's cool. We
what to
tell them
fear.
how to exploit, right?
That's it.
And then they pay us, and we get more money as we have taught them how to exploit and how to fear. And so I think just as easily they could teach something else. They could. I'm not a proponent of conditioning, but they could social condition something else as well. It doesn't have to be, this is the only thing the whites will accept is this version of America. There are other versions that could be accepted, but they
Could it
won't.
be
But
accepted?
they're
They don't make money.
But they're the whites. You forget that they're the whites. And so
Right, but that's
if they're ear, but remember they're listening to it and they are the whites. And so that's also what's appealing to
No,
them.
I think they are the wealthy whites.
Right.
And so I do think there's a class thing at
That's
play
the
here.
caste piece at play.
Yes, because I think maybe it wouldn't be the same extreme level of wealth, but you could still have wealth in another way and condition in another way and have classes and all of this stuff. But I think that they are making a very conscious effort to exploit. And they don't have to.
There's been a lot of conversation going on around Tubi, right? So how Tubi is free.
Tell the network.
Right, Tubi, the streaming network. They're putting out a whole bunch of content. A lot of it is Black content. A lot of it is self-made, low budget production, just throwing stuff out there. But the people who own Tubi are the Murdochs.
First Tubi movie.
Right.
Oh,
So it's the
really?
Fox
I
people.
actually didn't
No
know that.
way.
So that's the issue. So what people are saying, and that's how they. So like Fox 5, all that stuff is. They said this is what they wrote out
That makes
as their
sense.
playbook the first time, and now they're voting it out again. So while we find it as a channel for some people to get into creative spaces and break into the industry, they keep pushing this stuff
That
out.
is so disturbing.
It's the playbook
I didn't know that.
that has come out before, and now they're just making money. But yet, legislatively,
Not in the seat.
where they put their money up for lobbying
That's crazy.
is anti-Black.
Yeah.
So, like, what is?
Wow.
So again, so in my head, as you were saying this stuff, and it baffles me. But yet, they pretend like they don't see systemic racism. They pretend like they don't understand what institutional racism is. But it's an everyday practice.
Oh, I don't think they do understand it. I think they're doing it because that's what they do. Like they're in the system so much that they can't see the system. I don't think they
people at the
understand it
top
at all.
understand systemic racism.
I don't think so.
I don't think
they
everyday
do.
people.
I don't think so.
necessarily.
Because like the thing about
disconnected
systemic
from
racism,
Yeah.
the things that hold up
When you are the system, you
institutions
can't
are
see the
beliefs.
system.
Beliefs are literally the basis of holding up institutional racism. Because without beliefs, the institution doesn't work. The institution is only made up of people and laws created by people's beliefs. If they actually believe what they're believing, they're going to uphold systemic racism. So when you ask them to talk about systemic racism outside of that, they actually, I don't think that they actually
I don't think they
do
do.
understand in their ways.
I don't know if they know.
It's not about generosity. I'm not saying it's they're not. I'm not saying that they are like in ignorance, like, oh, it's like there's things that are hurting Black people. I think that they think that Black people are less than human, and so they uphold a system that continues to perpetuate as being less than human. I'm not saying that they're like.
So how is I
ignorant.
don't understand the difference though. If they believe that Black people are less than human, how do they not understand systems? Because they apply that systematically.
It's kind of like in Razor Blade Tears when
Come on,
our
Riaz.
white man protagonist made lots of remarks to our main Black protagonist, the other father.
But he's poor.
But
I'm talking about about people who
Right.
are at the
But we
top
brought them
who are
up too
orchestrating things.
about them
and I
being
think that's
independent
different.
people.
I do think class is very different.
So I agree with you. And so Origins, which is a fantastic movie, I think part of what we're seeing is one, there's such an entanglement of sexism, classism, racism, and all these other isms, right? So then when you try to untangle this and get at the root of this stuff, you're like, oh, well, no, that's this, that, like, you can't really name it as like white supremacy. But then part of the challenge that we have is for how many of the ever 100 years that America has been here, they've told themselves a story that they now believe. So this mythology, self-perpetuating mythology of America's never been racist, right? All these different things, they honestly believe this version of history, because who's writing the history?
That's right.
Who's banning the books? Who's burning the book? Like, there is an actual, and that was an amazing part in the Origins movie where they showed in Nazi Germany, they were actually out there burning books, right? So it's a way to change the history, remove it, and when you replace it with now these million selling books, and you have these networks, these TV companies, these newspapers. And I checked, I didn't want to give no bad information. Who owns Tubi? Fox Corporation, right? They're now replacing it with this alternate history that when white people read it, oh, well, this was our country. Like, no one even was here before us, right? Like, they're really believing this. So it's like they're erasing their own history. So what they believe is what they lied to themselves about. I really do believe I'm 6'9" and I can dunk, right? I told myself this for 30 years.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that there are some people, a smaller percentage, who know they're not 6'9", but are going to say it and convince others that they are.
Yes,
too.
I do agree with that.
Like, so many people are hoodwinked, you know. But there are some people who are extremely strategic and purposeful about what they're doing and manipulate all people, including white people who are not at those tables, right? Including all of us. And I think sometimes it does us a disservice as Black people to not name and acknowledge that there are some people who know exactly what they're doing and that they are manipulating on purpose and that they are harming white people too, right? Like, they're harming other white people. It's not just us who they're harming, and they're harming other people of color, but they are extremely intentional about it.
I agree with you. I do. I mean, to me, again, that was the impetus, the thing that really kind of drove me to want to read this book that I'm not really a fan of, but like, I love what came of it through the movie. The potential of it, to me, like, again, if I read the book first, I'm like, whatever. But what it was adapted into, I think, really synthesizes it down to, like I said, maybe spurned from this moment around art and how, even like all the award shows and all the stuff that was going on with it really helped to spotlight this issue about Blackness and how does America consume it, and how is it fetishized, and what makes money on it, how it's exploited, and just even again retells the story of the social conditioning of why you should fear certain people, and if they put on a hood, go to the other side of the street, right? Because they're just going to keep feeding this into society. And well, I'm glad I'm in wherever resort town that Black people aren't in, and they're reading this life, and they drive to DC and now they're rolling their windows up, right? So I think that is the part that I like the movie way better than the book. I will say that. I don't hate the book, as it's not my cup of tea. Right, I'll say that. I think I can really just say maybe I'm just not smart enough for this.
No,
I
no,
can-
ain't it? That's
Panama said he loves books that are smarter than him. That he literally texted me
That's
that.
what you just said.
That's what he texted me
He's like
earlier.
Monk's
Okay.
dad.
Oh yeah.
Oh, say that again.
Monk's dad in the book is like, he the first praise he gives one of his
Yeah.
books is like, you confused me. You gave
Yeah.
Right. Yes, yeah. It's I don't know. So, who else? Like overall, hands.
Sorry, I left my bag, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at it. Yeah.
By a show of hands, before I start introducing next month's book, well, this month's book technically, who enjoyed the book?
Except for the middle.
Well, yeah, I skimmed about her.
It's like half and half. It's like looks like.
4? No. Who did? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Who did not like the book?
See. 1, 2, 3, 4.
She didn't like the book. I'm calling
I
her.
like the
What was your take?
I didn't read the book. I've been listening to the book.
Say what?
I wanted to ask what was next month's book.
Next month's book is Black Gun Silver Star,
Okay.
the Bass Reeves story.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, they got the David Oyelowo.
Yeah.
That's his
Yeah.
series. Okay.
So I don't know. Okay. Well, I like the movie. Who liked the movie better than the book?
Oh,
Yay!
the movie was so creative.
Really? So you enjoyed the book more than the movie?
I don't think they're comparable. I think they're two
Yeah.
different
They
pieces of
are.
art.
I can't say more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoy both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really did.
For what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the same about Hunger Games because in the same faction they did leave a lot of characters out that were important to the story, but you gotta adapt for what your time frame is.
Yeah.
So.
And I even think the title, like, I don't think the movie could have been called.
Erasure.
Oh, no.
I wonder. You know,
No.
Color Purple is a Color Purple.
Yeah.
Book or a movie, but I don't know if the other one vice versa. Because the movie had been called
When
Erasure.
Panama like advertised this on Facebook, he was like, I can't say it's based on. He's like, it's
Right.
inspired by, you know,
Yes.
because that's how different it was, you know,
Mhm.
the movie was from the books. And I think that's right. Yeah.
That's
It's very
that's
different.
right.
Yeah.
I do it before you introduce, but do you think that, because I didn't know the connection, if you guys hadn't said it, do you think when I went to go see American Fiction that I would have made
Yeah.
the connection?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's
it's
enough
a-
Yeah.
overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's enough
You were like, is this
actual
based
words
on
that are
that?
left.
Yeah.
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 You've been a little confused. Like, okay.
You said no?
No, I think she would have made a connection.
Okay.
But I think it would have been like a little confused. Like, yeah, this is. It ended up being like two different products.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually really excited about doing a little bit more research because it says in this Deadline article that Jefferson, our man who adapted the screenplay,
Mhm.
read a review about a book that was referred to as a satire of this one. So I'm like, there's a satire of this one already.
Interesting.
Like, and then it brings me back to Native Son. I'm like, oh, do I need to go read Native
Now
Son?
I got to reread Native Son because y'all keep saying.
See our connections. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
So before I introduce this month's book, I got a last comment from our family member out in Texas, right? I think
Yeah.
you're in Texas now, Courtney. She says, as always, great conversation. That's what we do. Love the book and the movie.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mahogany Books, for creating a space and allowing me to participate virtually, all the way from Dallas. Miss you all so much. Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month.
Missed you.
Yes. Awesome. Fantastic. Miss Courtney Davis Guster
Yeah.
got the whole name.
Murray
Yes.
now.
All right. So with that, I'm excited because I don't know who picked Erasure. I'm going to blame Brianna.
Honestly, I thought it was Panama.
Oh, Panama. What's
Only Panama.
Yeah.
No, because he picked it because he did not like American fiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was like, we got to read the Erasure.
All right. So we want to. So I'm blaming him then. That's fine. I gotta blame somebody as long as it wasn't me. So February's book for Black History Month, and because the I don't know if you guys maybe we shouldn't watch the series. So there's a series that is out now on Paramount, I believe. That is
You shouldn't have told us that.
the Bass Reeves story, right? So it's like his origin story. And this has been a book that I have been wanting on my to be read book list for like years now. I think since we opened up the store in 2017. I found this book. We went up to this place in Baltimore, and like it's just like tons and tons of books, and we were just pulling books. And I saw this. I was like, oh my God, right? And because I'd heard of them, I had never read anything about Bass Reeves. So basically, he is the real person that like the Lone Ranger, like all those like white characters were created out of being out in the West, this super marshal and corralling all the bad guys. This is the actual person that was based on. So we're going to read Black Gun, Silver Star, The Life and Legend of Frontier Marshal Bass Reeves. This is the new edition. The first one that came out.
It's nonfiction?
It's nonfiction. It is like, history, biography. So we're going to read this February, discuss it the first Friday in March, which is
The first.
March 1st, which is the date and time that we meet all the time. First Fridays of the month, and from here from 6 to 8. So it's going to be Bass Reeves, Black Gun, Silver Star. I'm hoping I love this book. I'll be very upset if I don't, because I've been wanting to read this for so long. And I'm hoping you guys enjoy it too. I'm looking forward to what you all have to say about it.
All right.
Other than that, any other last comments, thoughts before we
gotta get to Baltimore.
go out of here?
As you guys always know,
Sorry.
Black Books Matter.
Come on, advertisement.
To Brianna. End it off in a soft way. All right. So fantastic. Thank you guys for being online with us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call or email. All right. Take care.
Can we do a quick picture?